Hey everyone, it's Dylan with CT Aquatics, and today we're going to be testing the microbiome in our tanks. So the tests that we're going to be doing today are the microbiome test from AquaBiomics and also the tank DNA test. These two tests tell you exactly what types of bacteria and parasites are growing in your tank, so that way you know what you need to do in order to get your cycle and tank in tip-top shape. It'll also let you know if you have something like ick or velvet or even urinema in the tank that can affect your fish and potentially get them sick in the future. So to start, I'm going to do the microbiome test first. When you order these kits online, it asks you what size rubber gloves you need. And the reason for this is that you want to keep everything sterile. So when I'm doing this test, I'm going to make sure I'm not touching anything once I put the gloves on other than the stuff in the kit. So I've already done one of these tests just to get practice, but each one comes with an instruction sheet that you can follow. It's took me a few tries reading through it just to make sure I knew exactly what I was supposed to do. So read the instructions carefully, but I'm also going to show you what to do right now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is grab the bag with the gloves in it, open it, and pull the gloves out. Now, like I said, once I've put these on, I don't want to touch anything other than what's in the kit. I also recommend washing your hands before you do this, which I've already done prior to filming. So these kits kind of smell like a doctor's office. When you open them up, they just have that sterile smell to them. But anyways, the tests are pretty simple. It comes with this large 60 milliliter syringe. So to start, I'm just going to open this up. We can toss that. And again, I don't want to touch this to anything other than the kit or the fish tank. So it says to take the sample right off the surface of your water. So I'm going to pull this back until I'm at 60 milliliters. So now I'm going to put my sample down and I'm just going to leave it on the kit. The next step, you're going to grab this shipping tube. It has two vials with a fixative solution in it. The fixative is essentially a preservative for the bacteria. So how this test works is you're putting the bacteria through a filter. So your water sample gets pushed through a filter, and then the bacteria ends up populating on the filter itself. So then you want to push some of this preservative through the filter as well so that the bacteria will stay alive in shipping back to the company. So I'm just going to start, and I'm going to pull out the first fixative solution, and I'll put the vial back down in the box. So now I'm actually just going to open this. This is the filter. It comes in a sterile container. Shouldn't need the sterile container after, so I'm just going to throw that back. Going to put the filter onto the syringe, and now I'm going to expel this into a container. The water that gets pushed through the filter is going to be discarded. So you can just push it right into the sink or into a little container. So you want to start pushing the syringe with the plunger at a rate of about 4 drops per second. It doesn't have to be exact, but this step is going to take about 5 minutes to empty the syringe. So I'm going to start now. Started a little quick, but just going to slow it down. And again, you're looking for about 4 drops per second, which is just basically a steady drop like that. If it's a stream, you're going too fast. And if the drops are coming out a lot slower than this, then you're probably going too slow. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want to just keep it at a slow drip rate like this. Alright, so we are just about done. Nothing else is coming out. So now again, I'm going to take this filter off. And I don't want to contaminate it, so I'm just going to take the sterile container it came in, drop it right back in there. Now it's time to actually do the preservative. So I just want to take the same syringe. I took the filter off, and now I'm going to take the fixative solution, and I had pulled the cap off of the test vial prior, and I'm just going to dump the fixative into the cap. That way I have a little dish to suck it up in. So we're done with that, and now I'm just going to suck up the fixative into the syringe. Just going to get as much of it as I can, and if you get a little bit of air in your syringe and it bubbles, it's not an issue at all. So now at this point, I'm going to take my filter again, and now I'm just going to, at a much slower drip rate of about 1 drip per second, just going to push it until the fixative is all pushed through the filter. So again, you want to go very, very slow with this. It's a preservative, so you just want to make sure that the whole filter is getting saturated. So there's 1. Alright, so now it can be about 1 drip per second. So now we've put the fixative through the filter, so now this should be preserved. So the next step with this is I'm going to put the syringe down. And again, I'm trying not to touch anything just to stay sterile. I'm going to take the sample bag, I'm going to open it up. So you rip the little plastic tab off, and then it's a little difficult, but once you get it open, there's a nice bag for the filter. We'll drop the filter into the bag. Then we can close it, and we're going to fold it over 2 to 3 times. So we'll do it 3 times. And then the yellow tabs off the side have wire in them. You're just going to fold those flat. And now we have our sample, our first sample in its pouch. So the next part of the same test, we now have to get a sample from a swab. So here's the swab. This is pretty simple. All you're going to do is twist it, which breaks the sticker, and then you'll pull the swab out. So now it's recommended to swab the inside of some sort of tube. You want one that's generally going to be submerged in water like 99% of the time. So I'm going to do it on the inside of this output. I turned the flow off in the tank just so there's no water pushing against it, but otherwise there's always water in this tube. So I'm just going to take the swab, and I'm going to just go around the inside of this tube. And the goal is to get it deep enough where you're not getting it in a spot where there's much light, so that it's just the bacteria and you're not getting any algae on the sample. So I'm going to pull it out. So now you can see right here, I'll go here, and now I'm just going to take the other vial that has the fixative, and I'm going to dip the cotton swab in the fixative and then let it dry for 2 minutes before putting it back in the vial. So take the cap off of the fixative, I'm going to put the cotton swab in the vial, spin it around a little bit, and now I'm just going to let it dry for about 2 minutes. Alright, so we've waited the 2 minutes for the preservative or fixative to dry. I'm just going to put the Q-tip back in its vial, and now we should be all set. So now all we have to do is we're going to take our samples, we're going to register them on the AquaBiomics website, and then we're going to send these off to AquaBiomics, and we should get some results in about a month. They'll tell us what our biome is like. It's been a little bit over a month since we sent our samples off to AquaBiomics to get analyzed, and we've finally gotten the results. So now I'm going to show you how to go through them. So I'm going to start out on the AquaBiomics website, aquabiomics.com. I've already logged into my account, and I'm going to go to reports. On the report section, you can see that it says, Welcome CT Aquatics. And then we have all of our tests here. So I'm going to just go through a few of these results now so that you can understand how to read your own results. So for the results, I'm going to go over the kitchen tank. This is at the new office. So you can see here, it says information about the sample. It has the sample ID and the sample name, tank name, and sample date, whatever you set it up as when you put the sample into the computer. So the first part that it's going to list out on your microbiome report is diversity. So the diversity is just telling you how many different types of bacteria are in your tank. So I came up in the 79th percentile, which is in the green range. This is very good. This is just based on the samples that they have tested at AquaBiomics. So you fall into a group. Every time a new sample is uploaded, the group and the population gets larger. So being where I'm at, it looks like I'm pretty much right in the middle, which is pretty good for the tank, considering it's as new as it is. Continuing on, we go to the balance. So again, the balance is just telling you roughly how balanced your bacteria populations are based on other people in this sample. So the other people in the sample, again, is everybody else that's gotten tested through AquaBiomics. So you're being compared to every other fish tank that they've tested. So I am on the lower side of balance. It's still green, like kind of greenish yellow. So my tank could probably get a better balance of bacteria, but overall it's not too bad. I mean, it could be way worse. Next we go through and it shows the community composition. So this is where the balance comes from. So you can see the amount of certain bacteria is way different in my sample versus the typical sample. So for example, the Vibrio bacteria, we have quite a bit more than the typical sample. And then it actually explains down here, if you go further, which families you have excesses of and deficient families. So, and it does have all these different types of bacteria are hyperlinked, and there's hyperlinks throughout this entire webpage so that you have the ability to familiarize yourself with these different types of bacteria so that you can understand what role they play in the aquarium better. I'm not going to sit here and go through each one because they can be a little bit complex in understanding, and you don't need to necessarily know everything about them. Continuing on, I'm going to go through the nitrifying community. So this is ammonia oxidizing microbes. So it just shows different levels and typical levels. Then we go to nitrite. So these are basically the two different types of bacteria or multiple types of bacteria that you're going to have in your tank that are going to essentially cycle your aquarium. This is what breaks down the ammonia through the cycle and gets you to the nitrates. Continuing on, they break down the different types of cyanobacteria that you may find. And then they go through and list different types of pathogens. So fish pathogens, coral pathogens. The second sample that we sent off for each tank did the DNA of the tank. And the main part of this that I was excited about is it tells you exactly what types of parasites are in your tank. So going through on the kitchen tank, we can see that as far as parasites go, it does say we have Uranema heteromarinum, which is the common form of Uranema. This is also known as Chromis disease. So you can click on that and it will bring you to a little bit of a description, and you can go and see exactly how it affects fish. But personally, I'm not surprised that this is in the tank. This is something that I have not been able to treat for. I'm not comfortable working with formalin or formaldehyde in order to get this off of fish. And so that's one of the reasons why I like to go through a company like Marine Collectors when buying fish, because they do quarantine using something like formalin or formaldehyde to help get rid of any parasites possible that may come in contact with the fish. And that way you know you're getting clean and healthy fish. I have worked with a lot of chromis. Some of the tanks at this office have chromis, and so I was expecting Uranema to have gotten through my quarantine. But one thing that I am happy to see is that there's no ick in this tank, because one of the tanks at this office did happen to get ick, and so this tells me that there hasn't been any cross-contamination, which is good. So going down, it also does break down some other stuff like dinoflagellates and diatom percentages. So we have pretty low levels in this tank, which is really good. Dinoflagellates and diatoms are both obviously something we don't like in the tank. They're like algae basically. Dinoflagellates are actually a bacteria, but they're unsightly and they'll grow over stuff and just make the tank not look so good. So having a low percentage is good. And then going further, it does break down eukaryotic biodiversity, which I'm not going to go into too much detail on. It does go through quite a bit of that, and that's pretty much what the rest of this breakdown is. But the tank DNA is very cool. It does go through and break down pretty much everything you could find in the aquarium possible. And so a lot of it, not everything, but a lot of it is hyperlinked so that you can read more and learn more about these different bacterias and living things that are growing in your tank. So that's pretty much it for the AquaBiomics test. And if you enjoyed what you saw in today's video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications to join us on our journey through the sea.